The 13th floor. The 13th floor.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 13th floor, where the furniture isn't always the best, but the views are amazing. Moderator B. Jones, and the views are particularly amazing. Today, we have the wives of some of our mainstays on the podcast this week. It only serves fitting for this being episode 99 that we bring the wives on the episode. If y'all caught that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, 99 followers.
Easy. So yeah, we're gonna definitely work around and introduce them. Just give you some insights in their insights on the podcast, and this is also going to serve as a pre-inaugural episode, I feel, of things to come. So we're going to look at this episode as a powder room of sorts. I think that's what we came up with. So I'm going to start this thing off with someone who's been here before. That should be very, very comfortable in this space. Miss Kristen Millender, can you try to introduce yourself and give us a little bit?
Sure. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm Kristen. Let's see, some things about me. You guys might remember me when I was on before when I was speaking about dentistry. So I'm a fourth year dental student at the University of Maryland here in Baltimore, Maryland. Hey. And other than that, I'm a mom. My daughter's name is Nia. She's 9 years old. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
She's like, ready to go. Get me out of here. Okay. And I'm moving on. Wendy, the glue that kind of keeps this thing stuck together. What's going on, ma'am?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Wendy Cadallo. I am the proud wife of Carol Cadallo. What do you guys call him on the show?
Coach K.
Coach K. Maybe I should have gone with that. Okay.
Nah, you good. Everybody knows.
Yeah, so I am a proud mother of a 2-year-old son, Asher. I am a stay-at-home mom, being 6 months on now. Yeah, 6 months now. And I'm just transitioning to this whole world of being a stay-at-home mom and enjoying all that has to offer. We just recently relocated to Chicago, so I'm excited to figure out what this city has to offer, aside from amazing tattoos from 9mag.
Really? You going to get some ink?
No, not me, but somebody needs to get some updated ink. So
I think I do too. I'm going to have to talk to you about that one offline.
Yeah, that's a sponsorship plug right there. So 9mag, if you're hearing us, holla at us.
Holla at us. See, she come on doing work. That's what I'm talking about. Adding value.
There's pizza and popcorn there too.
Pizza and popcorn. Oh yeah, Chicago deep dish. So y'all heard the voice. This is This is Faison's wife, EJ. EJ, how you doing this morning?
Hi, I'm doing well. I guess this is my turn to introduce myself.
Absolutely.
So, Rama Obilo Faison, Arthur's wife, or the whatever giant. What giant do you call him?
The BFBG, big friendly black guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you talking about the Gentle Giants?
Yes, or something like that.
Oh yeah, your Gentle Giants. Namdi and Ace over there.
Oh, that's right. So I am the proud mother of 2 bouncing baby boys. I'm also from Nigeria, and I am a vice president at a global bank, and I am in global philanthropy. So I give money away to nonprofit organizations to help engage our employees in volunteerism. And I'm really excited to be here. Oh, wait, I have a healthcare foundation, and we take doctors and nurses to Nigeria to do medical missions. And look forward to this chat. I'm excited.
Nice. And last but not least, Miss Gina Jones. What's going on, ma'am?
Hi, everyone. As you just said, I'm Gina Jones. My husband is Brian Jones. I don't know if you guys call him BJ, or he's the educator that is on the show every now and then. I was born in Miami, Florida, because there's a Miami, Ohio, and I lived in Ohio for a few years as well, which is where Brian is from. My parents are Jamaican and Haitian, and currently we live in Miramar, Florida. We have 3 wonderful children, a 10-year-old boy and a set of twins that are boy-girl, that are 10. Oh my goodness. My oldest is 12 and my twins are 10.
That's like that sometimes, all right. We knew what you meant.
The whole memory.
So most of the time, I'm doing activities with my children or taking them to whatever activities they're involved in, working with the church ministry as well. And then I work full time as a software quality analyst for a company that works with funeral homes and cemeteries in the nation, providing online memorialization products. So that's mostly me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that brief introduction, ladies. I definitely want to start the conversation off with you, Wendy. Being a stay-at-home mom. Oh, yes, absolutely. You're on the hot seat. First quarter. You said she was going to work on them faces, though, right?
She sat up. She was like leaned in.
But
I was ready to hear what everyone else had to say.
not
Okay.
this time. But I want to start with you because I think you have an interesting story and background. You're a stay-at-home mom now, but you were a corporate entity at first, with one of the big box retailers. So how has that transition been for you?
Yeah, I was in the automotive industry for 12 years. And it was a whirlwind. It was where I met my husband. It provided me a lot of happy moments. A lot of great friends came out of it. Traveled a little bit. Got a chance to relocate and hang out and meet a few people and witness a few different areas that, I may call home after we leave Chicago, because this is not it right now. But yeah, working in the corporate world, it did a lot. I gained a lot of knowledge just from the automotive industry, but from the personal standpoint, it turned me into this hard shell of a person where, to some degree, you almost lose yourself because you have to be Wendy 2.0 for work, and then you have to figure out who you are, or at least kind of come home and be the person that you know to be at home. Mm-hmm. But you end up taking some of that stuff back home with you anyway. Some of the competencies that they talk about, or you start talking to your spouse in star format or whatever. Yeah, so you start realizing that you're bringing that corporate self home, and you're like, wait. So this transition to being a stay-at-home mom has been an eye-opener, because now it's like, okay, I'm getting back to myself. I'm getting back to the person and figuring out the things that I enjoy doing, because obviously working 40, 45 hours a week, you're mostly at work, and family and all that other stuff is kind of on the back burner. So for the longest time, cars is really all I knew. Every time I looked at a car on the road, that's where my head was at. So now in this place in my life, I'm just enjoying hanging out with my son. I'm realizing that, he matches my energy. He looks just like his dad, but he has my energy. He has this love for dancing. He has this love for just, being silly, hanging out. And I'm loving it. I'm able to stay at home and actually witness all of these transitions that for the first year and a half of his life, I was subletting that to someone else, having a nanny in the house. And it broke my heart. For 40 hours a day, although I'm getting my work done, but my heart was at home trying to figure out this new baby. I'm a first-time mom. Here I have this new baby at home, and I'm coming home getting a full report from the nanny, although she was great. But, some of those experiences I wanted to be able to share with them. And, it's a hard moment when you love this little being and you want to be responsible for all the new things that they're transitioning and that they're learning, and you're at work. So the last 6 months has been amazing. So now that we're in Chicago, that's my little road dog. I throw him in the back seat and we're headed everywhere.
I have a question for you, Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
So normally we get, I think, 6 weeks for maternity leave or something like that. I'm not sure. Maybe every place is different. I know there's some efforts to increase that. But how, being that you were in the corporate environment and now you're privileged to be able to stay home with your child while they're growing up, and I'm not sure if you're going to be looking into getting back into work anytime soon, but having that experience, how long do you feel that that maternity leave really should be, where you feel comfortable enough to be like, okay, now I feel comfortable with leaving him for a little bit and going back to work?
Okay, well, on a personal note, when we found out, Asher was born in Baltimore. When I found out we were moving back to Florida, I was in the delivery room with Carol. and he had put in for a position wanting to get us closer to home. So that's where everything kind of was expedited. So technically at the time I had 6 weeks to stay at home, but that 6 weeks was kind of rushed a little bit because at the 7-week mark, when Asher was 7 weeks old, he didn't even have his 2-month shot yet. Okay. So at 7 weeks old was when I had to put Asher in a car and drive down to Florida with him, because having him in the airport wasn't going to be an option. But anyway, so luckily my boss at the time, he was awesome enough to give me more time off. The 6 weeks didn't even start until well after I probably was on vacation for 2 weeks before my actual 6 weeks started. So, and then on top of that, I opted for FMLA for another 2 weeks because I had my wisdom teeth pulled. So altogether, I was really out for about 8 to 10 weeks. And even that wasn't enough, because by the time I moved to Florida, I had 3 weeks to find a nanny or find some form of childcare for this innocent little fragile being in a city that I've never lived in. I mean, I'm from South Florida. I'm from Miami. I moved to St. Augustine. I don't know anybody in St. Augustine. And, to be honest with you, when we moved down there, it was during the heat of the election. So all I saw were a bunch of Trump supporters with their signs and banners outside their front yard. So here I come down to St. Augustine with my little black baby trying to find somebody to watch him and hoping that, there's not going to be any kind of issue there, because, there's issues out there. Yeah. So going into that transition, 6 weeks was not enough. Even the 10 weeks wasn't enough. I had to figure out a way around that. And luckily I had bosses at the time who understood my position. My boss in Maryland, I guess his wife must have been through something similar, and he agrees that 6 weeks wasn't enough. So that's why he was so willing to work around that. But I think the thing that made me more upset was knowing that overseas, doing all this research, overseas, there's women who actually get like a whole year off.
Yeah, right.
18 months, and their spouses even get somewhere around a month to 6 months off in other countries. And here I am with the 3-month-old trying to figure out who's going to watch him. And that bonding time was so important. And for anyone who doesn't believe in postpartum depression, this is one thing that can actually expedite it for you. You have to relocate with a brand new baby. Your whole world's already changing in one way, having a newborn. Now you're having to relocate to a whole new city and find somebody to take care of said baby.
Right.
So no, 6 weeks is not enough. I feel like the rules are a bit outdated as far as the maternity laws for employers. I feel like, it was a group of men who sat down in a boardroom one day, decided what's going to be best for us. And maybe at the time, it was at a time where women weren't working as much. That's not the case now. I mean, to some degree, I actually enjoyed the work that I did, but I don't want to stay at home all the time with Asher. I think that at this point right now, the last 6 months have been amazing. I think that as I'm transitioning to getting him back into school, or getting him into school and getting that whole thing underway, I'm in no rush to get back to work, maybe in about a year or so. But right now it's really focused on getting him everything that he needs. Now, who can do that while they're working 40 hours a week? If their child has, needs, or if their family has specific needs, that's kind of tough.
Was it 6 weeks only for you, or was
it was only 6 weeks. Now, funny thing though, just before I left my job, they made changes to the maternity policy, where now the women who gave birth will have, if you had a C-section, I believe it's up to 15 weeks. And if you delivered vaginally, then you would have 10 weeks.
Yeah,
maybe that's 10 and 12. Maybe it's 10 and 12. So
it's 12. Well, actually, at my firm, it's 4 months. You get 4 months.
Oh, lucky you.
I wasn't eligible at the time when I had Arinze. And then when I had Namdi, it was 12 weeks at the other organization that I was at. So I didn't know that some folks only had 6 weeks. I thought it was standard to at least be 10 or 12.
Yeah.
It might be the sector of jobs or like the types of jobs that are more limited in how much maternity leave they give.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I know like well, when I was pregnant with Nia, when I had Nia, I had just graduated, so I had that time, but then I did go back to work like maybe 3 weeks after I had her. That was something personal and immature of me because I was only 22 and I just didn't know enough at that time to be able to plan things out. But I do like 6 weeks to me just sounds. It sounds bizarre because your baby is, little do we know, your baby is learning a lot. That's they're not necessarily very expressive outside of crying, but they're taking in a lot of information and learning the world around them. And like when you're not there as the mother and the protector to teach them, somebody else is, so even looking like you can have a wonderful nanny, but still that baby is learning by observing, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I just wish that we had more time to spend with our children when we first have them. Yeah.
And if I have to be honest, maybe that was probably broken down into tiers too. So after 6 weeks, I think you actually had the option to stay a little bit longer out, but that was going to be at risk of your pay going down like to 75% and then 50% and then so forth and so on.
You got to compromise.
Yeah, exactly. So, when I looked at the whole thing together, I started thinking about women who were in different situations who were having children. And the first question that came to mind, being new to the whole thing, was how? Like, what was it that was going on for you? And I'm really asking like honest questions, like what was going on with you at work and how did you feel going back to work? And, for some women, like my sister being one of them, she's like, you got to do what you got to do. And I'm like, I'm not built. I mean, I'm built to do what I have to do. But when it comes to my child, what I have to do is be there for him.
Yeah.
So these employers that are over here managing their business based on, my return to work, you probably need to think about a couple things. One, if you're hiring a 20-something-year-old and hoping this person has longevity in your company, and they're adding value to it, why at that point would you hold them to only 6 weeks to stay at home with their kid? Before I had Asher, I was 10 years with the company. And then when it came down to that whole thing, I had to have an honest conversation with my boss. And, I told him like, look, 6 weeks isn't enough. It just isn't. I even went to human resources and she had just come back from having a kid, but she was on her third. So she was probably worn out by that time. She was probably happy to come back to work. Yeah. But on my end, I was like, 6 weeks isn't enough. 8 weeks isn't enough.
Situation, based off of you as a person, I think, sensitive to that.
If I had to be honest with you, I would have taken all the vacation time I had and then given my 2 weeks notice.
What about you? What's the maternity leave situation at your job?
Was that directed to Gina? Yeah. I was going to ask the same question, Gina, because you had 3 kids, and I think you said you work from home. So what was your experience with it?
I'm actually sitting here trying to remember what the policy was at that time, and it was a little different for me. When I had Mason, I was actually only working part-time, finishing up a degree. So we made the situation work for us, where I actually didn't go back to work or find a full-time job. So he was 1 year old. Mm-hmm. And I actually nursed him for that whole year as well. Mm-hmm. But that was a blessing. And then we moved to Cincinnati, like basically the week before he turned 1. So he was literally 1, found a job. And then shortly after that, got pregnant with the twins. So they're 2 years apart. And I believe the policy was 6 weeks, if I'm remembering correctly. But then I applied for FMLA and took 12 weeks unpaid. And had to just make it work, save up enough or whatever. So that way, because there's no way.
So,
and I was even contemplating, am I going to go back to work? I need to find, I wasn't even sure because having 3 small kids under 3 at that time is like, is there more money to pay for childcare than it is to
start balancing it out? Like, what's
more than a mortgage, the childcare situation.
Exactly.
Legitimately a mortgage.
Yeah.
So me hearing this for the first time, and I'm glad we're having this kind of conversation. It almost sounds inhumane. What advocacy do you guys see or know of to kind of get these policies to change in more of your favor?
I don't know any specific groups, but I know that I've read about groups who do advocate for maternity leave. And also paternity leave is more so emerging now because there are single fathers too. Mm-hmm. And or they're just fathers who want to do their part with staying home too. So I don't know of any specific groups, but there are some. I can look that up on everyone else.
Nice. And EJ, what was your experience with it as well? I don't think we got you in there.
What, with maternity leave?
Right. Well, just because you work in such a global bank, at a global bank in such a global position, what was your experience? And I guess how are you and Arthur able to make it work with having Ace and Nnamdi and you still being able to be that career woman?
Yeah, when I had Nnamdi, I was at a major nonprofit organization in New York City, and I'd been working there for 5 years already. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I was basically working with my family, basically. So, 2 weeks before I gave birth, like they literally were like, please don't come here to the office anymore. Like just stay wherever you are. And so every once in a while I'd go into the office, and then I had Nnamdi, and I was out for 12 weeks. However, I don't think I really got a check.
Yeah, I think that was FMLA. It's probably unpaid.
Yeah, it was like, I think I got a little bit of money, but it was like probably like $1,000 in the grand scheme of like being out of work for 3 whole months. Because I was 12 weeks there, and I think I stayed out just a little bit longer. Then when I got the job at my firm, and I found out I was pregnant maybe a couple days after I had accepted the offer, and I was mortified. If I told you the amount of people that I called and asked for advice and opinions on if I should tell my new manager that I was going to be coming in pregnant, man, I had so many conversations, and every single person that I spoke to told me to not say anything at all. They said, don't mention it. Don't say anything. Just show up, be pregnant, and be your great self. And it was a switch in industry for me, like a complete switch, being at a nonprofit organization and then going to a Fortune 100 company. I didn't even know what to expect. And one day I was just sitting on the couch, and a spirit moved me. And I was like, I've got to call my manager and tell her there's no way I could show up there. And I called her. And I said, hey, I had to tell you something. I wanted to let you know that I'm actually pregnant. And her first response was, damn. And then she's like, you know what? She's like, this is great. This is fine. She's like, you're going to be with us for a long time. So, we're going to make this work, and we're going to treat you well. And she was just so amazing and awesome. And I was like, I was saying a whole bunch of stuff to try to make it better. And she was just like, just stop. Stop. You don't need to do all of that. She was like, this is going to be great. And my actual boss at the time was on maternity leave. And it was just really nice of them. I was still paranoid, and I definitely carried that paranoia into the first, I'm pretty sure year and some change of being in my role. Mm-hmm. But I was out for 12 weeks. And at my firm, you get FMLA, but you get half of your paycheck. They don't not pay you. So you get half of your paycheck. And then my boss was kind enough to return me to work and let me work remotely until the new year, because I had Arente in September. So I didn't go back to work until January. It could be because I work with a bunch of women. I don't know. But I feel like they were a bit accommodating. And we do have a nanny as well. And, I definitely struggle with a few things, are my kids learning what I want them to learn and the way that I want them to learn it and at the time frame that I want them to learn it and all that, that's a struggle. But I think, Arthur and I are really intentional about what we do when we're with them and the time that we're spending. And even if I'm frustrated on my way home, my energy when I walk through the door, I do my best to not bring that to them. When they go to sleep, it's different.
Yeah, because you get to kind of download a little bit then.
Yeah. And having 2 kids, God bless you, Gina. Like, yeah.
God bless you guys with more than one.
Yeah. Having
Well, that's another thing to kind of consider. Each one of our families, both partners or the spouses work. So I think that's another dynamic that I'd like to discuss with you, lady, is how that is shared amongst you all. Like, what's the give and take? I guess I'll start with you, EJ.
What's the give and take?
Yeah, like how do you share that responsibility?
You all know Arthur. He is like the Energizer Bunny. He literally does everything on earth. So I feel like the balance is sometimes I'd be sitting back and I'm like, oh, I guess I should go do something now.
Start making you feel bad.
That's real.
I think with us though, it's like you kind of have to take those moments. And like with us, I think it's less announced,
because it's so unpredictable.
Very unpredictable. And then it's just like, okay, if I'm picking up Nia on a Friday, Chris is like, all right, I'm gonna go see Quinetta and we're gonna hang out in DC. And I was like, all right, cool, go ahead and take it. And it's reciprocated, so that's kind of how we have to manage it because of how busy our lives are.
Yeah, I think we have we don't go anywhere really, and if we're going somewhere, we're usually going together. There are very few occasions and rare occasions, and now that we've moved back to the town that I grew up in, I think maybe it might change a little bit. Mm-hmm. But the people that he considers his really close friends, which are all of our husbands, they're all spread out. So this time when he's on the podcast and stuff like that, I don't bother him. I'm like, you want me to bring you tea?
So supportive of that time, right?
Supportive of that time and that kind of thing. But our schedule, we have a strict schedule for the boys when they're up, when they're down for their nap. In fact, that time is upon us right now. When they go to sleep, and I think other people sometimes, and even my own parents are just like, but like really, they can't stay up for like 10 more minutes. No, because mommy and daddy need their time. Like there's stuff that needs to happen. Like I need to do work, and it's a struggle. It's a balance. And I think it will continue to be a struggle and a balance until they can type and can help me with stuff and I can put them to work. I think it's always going to be a balance, but I do think that my family and even my brothers have said to me at times, they're just like, the things that your husband does to support you and my vision and the different projects that I work on that have literally nothing to do with work, that things that like barely pay me or not at all. His energy for that and the way he shows up for me is really incredible. So
yeah,
we're gonna have to come back.
I was just talking to him about that the other day.
Yeah. What about you, Gina? You and BJ?
We work well, really, as far as getting the schedule. I mean, everything. We have a shared family calendar. Everyone has, because the kids are old enough, they all have their own mobile phone. So everyone's got that calendar on their app. And it's a responsibility. If you got a after school program or need to be picked up, you put it on the family calendar. And then we just know we don't block.
Or if they don't put it on the family calendar and need to get picked up, they on the curb. Like what happens?
You put it on the calendar, it's on the curb.
You can call. I'm just playing, but we haven't had that issue yet.
Put them in an Uber, bring them home.
Exactly.
We really don't go out a lot either. We're pretty much homebodies, so maybe that works for us as well. And then whenever we do, he's very supportive. He's like, he'll just tell me to go out and have fun, or even if I don't bring it up. So I don't have that issue that I know some of my other friends may have with their husbands, as far as whatever. I don't have that issue with him. And I haven't had the issue with and he does a lot of stuff for the kids. His schedule is a little bit more flexible than I am because he's not in one position all the time with his job. He normally gets home earlier than I get off, so he'll start dinner, which is very helpful for us. So everyone knows what the routine is. come in. We're not as strict as EJ. I kind of wish we were. So it's like, can I have 15 more minutes to go to bed? Or
Well, they can talk to you and negotiate. Like,
yeah, you're right.
You don't get to negotiate.
You're right.
Even with the negotiations, man, you gotta be careful because we got a master negotiator in there right now. And
Oh,
I
really?
mean, that's probably to a certain fault of mine, and it's because I realized that when I realized how hard it is for us, well, me, I can say personally, starting off when I was working before I started dental school and negotiating certain things at work, as far as my salary, as far as my future with the company. And I feel like that reasoning kind of starts young. So now that's not how I grew up. There was no options, no negotiation, no nothing. But I think that may have inhibited me a little bit when it came to reasoning and realizing, okay, but I have something to contribute as well, even from a very young age, and being able to like start articulating that. So even with Mia now, if she wants something, you know, and maybe we would have told her no, and she comes back and she's like, okay, so if I contribute this or if I do this, can I, you know, what can we basically work out? And that's a much different conversation than it is when I was just saying, because I said so. But some of that is necessary too, to be that rigid, but also like, I don't know, I just noticed how that could have been done a little differently with me and would have prepared me enough to like outside of my family to feel like I can negotiate with some opportunities here. Anyway, I might be going on a tangent, but
I was gonna. Can I add to your tangent, or maybe if
yes, please.
train of thought though. I had no opinion or option or whatever when I was growing up. My African parents, if I even blinked the wrong way, it'd be like, "You talking about? Is there a problem?" No, there isn't, and.
I mean, I can say the same. Yeah, it was same with me.
No,
yeah.
but at the same time, like if you ask my friends like who to go to for negotiations and who thinks that they can contribute to everything, anything, like that's me all day. Mm-hmm. But I think my parents just brought it out of me in different ways, in the weird kind of ways. You know, my dad would make us read the newspaper every day, and before he got home, we had to know what was happening in the world, and we had to report out to him before he got home. And then every summer he would give us like a ridiculous, like 400 page book, and we would have to write a report, and it would be something that we didn't understand. But let me tell you, I became a master BSer, and conversation, just make up a whole bunch of stuff. I could also tell you what's happening in the world. I could negotiate my stuff. I can find a way to make myself seem valuable when sometimes I don't.
That's important.
Like I had to make up what I thought. I was like, well, Daddy said that I needed to do this, so I'm just gonna make it happen. So,
well, if I have to be honest, EJ, I mean that still gets you to the Oval Office too.
Huh?
I said that skill set gets you to the Oval Office too.
I can. Oh well, can I get there? I'm not an American.
You sure can.
You are over.
I wasn't born here. I was born.
The rules are only for those who want to follow them, as we can see.
Yeah.
That's
politics, you can make your own rules. Obviously.
I'm just saying all this. I mean, you know, it's funny because this is something completely unrelated, but you know, I rethink that whole thing about a straight A student because we had like a C student in office. We have the master BSer in office. Bush was like a C student. Straight A's where? You know, like when you think about education and all that other fun stuff, I mean, as a parent, you want to get your child there. But when I was a kid, all that stuff that was being pushed into me, I was like, oh, okay, straight A's, okay, I'll do that. I want to go far. I want to get better. Just to see that all that hard work that you put in, a C student made it in the Oval Office, and a BS who didn't even go to school, man, is the president of the United States.
But there's some other things.
There's a lot of that go
outside
into
of the.
That's just my own little nugget. We can get back into it. That was.
You don't have to hit that though too.
Yeah. And
to be able to
this is
influence
also.
people.
I can't.
I said you really just need to be able to influence people.
Mm-hmm.
Positively or negatively.
Oprah.
That's just the leadership. Yeah. Yeah.
the worries or fears, or create them if they don't exist.
Right. Give them something that they can latch onto, and then they'll push you the rest of the way. I want to go back to the point of the support from the husbands. I think there should be a lot of bilateral support in our relationships, right?
Wait, but what about you, Wendy? Because you
Oh,
didn't.
I'm sorry.
Regarding what exactly?
Well, since Wendy's a stay-at-home now, you know, it's a lot of different dynamics. So Carol's at work all day while you're at work all day at home.
So
Oh wait, I don't.
just keep in mind, I've
Yeah.
only been a stay-at-home mom for 6 months.
Right.
This is all still new. So
And watching a kid all day is not the business.
That's why I say at work at home, because
that's
I
why I
don't
was
think a lot of people
say
really
work at
do it.
home.
it is an eye-opener for sure. I mean, you're talking about just the personal schedule that I have to be on. You know, Carol has more clothes than I do. So when laundry comes up and folding comes up, there's a negotiation that kind of has to happen there.
What is the negotiation, Wendy, when the laundry and the folding comes up? Is it you wash it and fold it and they put it away? How does that work?
No, bro.
Uh-oh.
No.
Let's
But
start
okay,
nothing.
so let's go back for a moment. So when I was working, the responsibilities were pretty much split, and it was almost like it was unsaid what was needed. You know, I already knew Carol hated doing dishes, so that was on me. So there's no worries there. You know, that's been since we were dating. I've known that. So I signed up for it. It is what it is.
I wonder where they
But when it comes to
Your nails look nice, by the way.
oh, thanks.
All that dishwashing you be doing and stuff.
hands.
I was looking at it too.
Yeah, so when it comes to the responsibilities around the house, you know, it really falls under communication because with Carol, he gets so involved in a lot of the things that he has going on, especially with trying to get the speaking underground. I am trying to like push him in that direction full-fledged because in my personal opinion, I feel like his talents are wasted in the corporate world. From the side that he's currently in, I feel like, you know, where he did the most was when the higher up he got, he was able to help more people that looked like us in a world that otherwise that wouldn't have happened. And I feel like once he gets out into the speaking world, that umbrella can be covering so many more people. And I want to see all the other folks that he can help and benefit and put in situations where they realize that their skill set can be, you know, can grow. So with that being said, while we were working, the family calendar, yes, that was extremely important. If it wasn't on the calendar, I wasn't going to remember. And if you needed time for something, oops, sorry. So, what else was there? Me talking about what my needs were. So with him being engulfed in all of that, all the other stuff, whether it's the guys traveling or whatever the case was, if for some reason I was feeling, you know, left behind, you know, he was very open to hearing all of that and giving me the time that was needed to make sure that, you know, I had my me time. So, you know, lately he's like, okay, I'll watch Asher, you go get your nails done, or, you know, we'll figure out a way to make it to the movies, and, you know, where it's, you know, the two of us with Asher sleeping in between us. So, you know, we try to work it out that way, but I think the communication is the biggest part, you know, so we don't have like a list of things that within the house that we do, but we just kind of vibe off of each other and figure out, okay, well, if this is what I've been doing all week long, you know, whether it be hanging out with Asher, cooking all week, doing all the grocery shopping, then, you know, he'll take care of other things like, you know, making sure the bed's made, cleaning the bathrooms and all this other stuff there. So, but communication is really the fundamental piece of it all. Without that, then everything just falls apart. I'll be harboring feelings and he'll be going on his merry way thinking everything's okay.
As we often blindly do.
Yeah. Where'd EJ go?
Man, I think because she started talking about the president and running and all that stuff, you know, we didn't have some controversial.
We getting tapped.
We got some controversial conversations on the 13th floor, and you know they be tapping us. So we're gonna keep this thing going until she gets back on. I do have to say, ladies, that this conversation has been great, and unfortunately, I do have to start moving us in the right direction. So some of these things, like
In
this
another direction.
in another direction towards the closing. But the education and the bilateral support, that's all things that you can expect coming soon from the powder room editions of the 13th floor. So while EJ is trying to find her way back on the elevator, I want to get you guys' take on the growth of the podcast, man. You know, it's been 2 years for us. We're a couple of episodes away from 100, and there's been growth from everybody in many different ways. But I want to get you guys' take on that and, you know, what you've seen from the podcast and how you've seen that growth in us.
So I remember when Brett started thinking of the idea when he started working with the other guys in flagellology and started thinking about the podcast, and I thought it was an excellent idea. I'm really critical. So I offered a ton of feedback, a ton of thoughts and everything. And Brett is an introvert. So for him to be the moderator, which is, you know, it was going to be new. And, you know, I just noticed him starting off and then just over time growing, developing, and you know, the segues were smoother over time. And, I don't know. I see a lot of growth there. And, I really like how you guys kind of are pretty flush with each other now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like the exchange and the dialogue as much is fluid. You know, you guys are not trying to figure each other out, you know, and as a moderator, you know your guys, you know who to go to, you know how to, you know, direct the conversation. I think one of my biggest things at the beginning was I want to listen to this on my commute because I only have a 45-minute commute. So it's I need to get the whole thing in because I think you guys spent the first 30 minutes just catching up. That may be an exaggeration. It's probably an exaggeration, but by the time I was parking in the garage, it's you guys were starting to get into the conversation. It's dang, you know. But now I think you guys do a great job of introducing everything, getting into what you got to say, and really delivering important stuff to us. You know, I feel it's, you know, life-changing things that you guys talk about a lot of times, especially with Gina, I think your husband is into education.
Right.
Yes. Man, the things the gems that he be dropping. I mean, all your husbands are really, really, really useful, the things that they say. But you guys just come at a great time, and I really appreciate the fact that the podcast gives a voice to Black men. I feel a lot of times Black men are left out of the conversation. It's assumed how you guys feel or how you guys think or how you guys are going to react. But you guys have thoughts and ideas and perspectives that I think add a lot to the table. And, you know, it's nice as a Black woman, and I'm sure you guys might agree, a lot of times we're in the forefront of a lot of things. And maybe it's just that we're just really vocal. But it's nice to kind of sit back and watch our men lead in this type of discussion. So that's how I feel about the evolution of the podcast. Sorry.
Welcome back, EJ.
Hey,
What's going on? Yeah, we were just giving the ladies were giving their take on the podcast thus far, giving how you've seen it grow and what you may have seen from us from day one to now, and you know, things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, rough around the edges at first, you know, but you guys definitely have grown. I mean, at times I will literally binge on listening to the podcast, and I'll just be laughing because I commute a lot, and I'll be laughing on the train at just some of the things that you guys are saying. And I'll be looking around, people oh, you don't because you're not listening to what I'm listening to. You should try it. And I have so many friends that are just especially my Nigerian ones, it's the podcast that Otto, because they can't say his name. That Otto is on, is so nice. I like it. It's very, very, very informational. And I'm yeah, it is wonderful. But I love it. And you're right, Kristen. I think for our men, getting to see them in this kind of light and a positive one, and just such eloquent and thoughtful speakers, and then also just not always the cookie cutter, you know, things that you think. And Ian always like surprises me sometimes. Like he'll drop something on you, and you're just like,
We just said that. I'm gonna write that down.
yeah,
Right.
well, everybody.
I think my favorite part has to be like, there's a put it on a t-shirt is kind of what I tell Carol all the time.
Yeah.
Whenever there's these catchphrases that come up, I'm like, put it on the t-shirt, because there's things that happens throughout the podcast that I'm a huge fan of. But my observation of the growth over the last 2 years, obviously, to EJ's point, it was a little rough around the edges at first, but I feel like there's a little bit more I get to learn about you guys each podcast. Moreover, with Carol, he is that motivator in a very subtle way. He's that person that he will.
Sometimes he's overt.
Yeah, well, yes, that's true. He's not shy about the things that he has an opinion on, but when he sees the potential in somebody, he's not afraid to try to push them either, to the point where it's even uncomfortable. So I remember the conversation when this whole podcast came up with Brett and Carol, and they're just sitting down talking through it, and Brett just looked a little nervous when Carol said, "You should do it." So
you were in your kitchen that night.
I remember. I remember the inception of the whole idea. And at first I was thinking like, all right, well, how many people would this be? Can they pull this off? And, at this point, I'm glad you guys are still 2 years in and everyone's still excited to get on the call every Sunday or Monday to record, because, the thought that goes into it, I think is extremely important. The message that you guys are putting out there. I think that everything that you guys, from your backgrounds, you contribute so much in ways that I feel other people may not be able to verbally express. From the entrepreneurs like Ian, I think about him all the time. I'm just like, I didn't know that he went through half the stuff that he went through. Or with BJ, listen, BJ is low-key clutch, and
I don't know if he realizes it yet.
I don't know if he realizes it yet, but he's gonna be on my speed dial on regular now. I mean, he's just such a wealth of information, and I'm just so happy that you guys are this band of brothers who can get together and just allow your life experiences to come out through this podcast. But over the last 2 years, I've seen that it's more fluid now. I see that I feel like you guys have grown personally through what each other have to offer, but hopefully there'll be more testimonies of other viewers or listeners out there who have gotten something from you guys so far. Like EJ mentioned, Jamal, I'm out here in Chicago looking for him.
Yeah, right. What's funny is that Arthur he'll be in trouble some days, like when he goes down into the podcast, and we might be getting into it about something, and he'll come back with like a different perspective, at least on life, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
For us, it is therapeutic, man. We get to talk about a lot of things that we traditionally, men, just don't talk about. And, the inspiration from 444 and how we kind of took that to direct us was huge. So it's our sacred space some of the time, but we don't mind having you on here every so often.
Oh, thank you.
And that's what I appreciate about it for EJ, is that I can see the energy it gives him and it inspires him. And he has that venue to talk about the things that are really passionate to him that he may not otherwise be able to. And that, other people that maybe we don't even know about yet are affected. Because you bring up education. In my house, when people come up, I'm like, just don't talk about education. What was supposed to be a 1 hour dinner is like a 5 hour dinner now.
Oh, yes.
So, and just the brotherhood that you guys have, and that you guys have this space. I really appreciate it. I won't talk too much because you guys said really everything.
Before I close us out, man, is it anything that you all, I guess specifically, would want to see from us on the podcast?
Cut Jeremiah a break.
He'll never give him a break.
But I try to defend him as best I can.
I see that, and I appreciate the fact that he has an advocate on the call. But man, sometimes I tell Carol, I'm like, you're Mr. Call Out, like not call out, but he's the person that will call somebody out on everything. And, you know, like for a while when he was age checking Jeremiah, I'm like, stop setting this man up. You know, he doesn't know who Chris
That was crazy, though. Like some of these things,
huh?
some of these things, though, like I don't know. I just feel like they're staples within our community, and you can't miss them. And even though we have this same conversation between us,
You miss a lot of staples in the community
like
too.
what?
And I do too. I was raised by first generation Nigerians who haven't heard anything. And the looks that I get from Arthur when I say that I literally don't know some of the staples in, like, I guess American Black culture,
Right.
Black culture, like I literally, like, Arthur just is so ashamed of me.
That's a lot more understandable, though.
That is more understandable because you have Nigerian parents, you know, but not
My brothers know these things, I think. I don't know. I can't keep up.
Anyway, man, ladies, I really appreciate your time, man. I think the support that we get from you all is amazing. It's one of the larger driving forces behind the podcast, especially the criticism. We need that most definitely to make sure that we're putting out the best product. So anytime you have anything to share with us, you know, please don't hesitate. I know you won't anyway.
Oh,
But
no.
please.
I have a suggestion.
Damn.
You can incorporate the powder room or do something with that.
Oh, I'm already. Yeah, we got like at least 4-5 topics that we got expounded upon. We've been typing, so absolutely the powder room, man. I don't know how we're gonna work it in yet. We're gonna continue to talk with our soon-to-be powder room hosts on how frequent we want it to happen. But it's definitely gonna be a space because I think through these conversations, you know, we're utilizing the 13th floor to get the voices of the Black male out. But your perspective as well, your views on these things feed into that. And I think the best thing that'll come from it is the support that we would exude to the rest of the world. We'll show that we have each other's back. And I think in this day and age, this time that we live in, with the push that Black women are doing in all of their respective spaces and rights, we have to be behind you in order to get in the front of that so that we are defending you the right way and vice versa, because we already know that you have our backs on that same token.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm off my soapbox. Remember, you can get this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud. You got your videos on Vimeo and YouTube. Each and every week we drop this thing on Fridays, as long as Fresh isn't doing his DJ thing and we get too far behind. But definitely check us out, get connected. Social media at 13th Floor, please, on all your social media sites. So that's all we got. Thank you for listening here with us on the 13th Floor, Powder Room Edition, where the furniture isn't always the best, but the views are
The
amazing.
13th floor.
Bye, thank you.
The 13th floor.